from the rear panel. We'll go ahead and pull the panel off. Alright, now that we have the rear cover off, keep in mind that when you're looking at this video, we're looking at it from the top side, so it may be upside down depending on how you're looking at the TV. This is where the problem exists. We need to remove this outer casing. It looks like there are 4 screws on this side, and I believe 4 screws on that side. 3 on that side. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll go ahead and remove those screws to save time, and we'll start the video back. Alright, these screws are removed, and we'll remove this cover. And I need to correct myself too, there were only a total of 6 screws there, not 8. And when you're doing this kind of stuff, it's always a good idea to take pictures as you're removing stuff, lay stuff out in an orderly fashion so you know where stuff goes. And what we need to do next is unplug all these connectors. It looks like most of these will only go into one plug, so there's not a very high likeliness that you'll get them plugged into the wrong place. Just kind of set those to the side. And it looks like there are 6 screws holding this in. And we will remove those and start the video again. Alright, those screws are removed. Now we'll lift the board. And if you look closely, these 3 capacitors are what we're working with. You can see on the top side, they're actually bulged. I don't know if you can see that or not, but where the other ones are kind of flat, these are bulged. That's a sign of a bad capacitor. And also on this one, you can actually see fluid coming out of the top side. And what we're going to want to do, we're going to use some solder wick, and we're going to remove the solder on the back side, and these should pop right out. And also with the capacitors, you want to make a note too, there's usually a positive and a negative side. And yeah, they are marked on the board. You can see there's a plus right there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there is a plus. You need to make sure you get these in right. But we'll go over that a little bit more when we go to put them back in. Alright, one thing you might want to do, you might want to locate the capacitors that you're going to be removing. And from the back side, we're going to take a Sharpie and mark, just a small mark so we know what we're removing. And the best way to do that is to actually look at the side, hold your finger on it, and you can kind of get a good idea where they're at that way. Alright, now we know which ones we're removing. Alright, we're going to go ahead and attempt to remove the solder on these pins. Now sometimes when you go to desolder stuff like this, sometimes the solder doesn't melt right away. If you have trouble with that, just put a dab of solder, extra solder on it, and sometimes that'll get it to break loose. And don't be stingy with your wire wick or your desoldering wick, because it'll usually get filled up pretty quick. Watch you don't burn your fingers, this stuff does get hot. And as you'll notice, these tabs are bent over a little bit. Makes it a little more difficult to remove them. You just try to bend them back the best you can. If you break them off, it's no big deal because these are coming out anyway. Now if those are bent back up, we'll hit it again with the solder wick just to make sure we got it all. And they should pop out. And there they are, successfully removed. And what I want to do, I want to go ahead and clean up this flux that came out on the board before we put the new ones in. So I'm going to prep that real quick. Okay, we have the board cleaned up, and now we're getting ready to put the new capacitors in. As you can see, the new capacitors we have are physically a little larger than the ones that came out. That is fine though, because the spacing between the pins is equal length. They should still fit fine. You need to take note too, the longer pin is your positive and the shorter pin is your negative. That's indicated right here on the side of the capacitor. You want to make sure you get those in right. On this board, if you're looking at it from the angle I am, the right side is the positive. And what you want to do when you get that in place, kind of pull it kind of tight and bend those pins over just a little bit so it doesn't move. And we'll do the same for the other two. The far side is the positive on this. And we will put a dab of flux everywhere we're going to solder. to make sure your solder joints are nice and clean. And once we get it soldered, we're going to clip the ends. And we are now ready to reassemble. Alright, before we put it back together, I want to give you a real quick look at what the capacitors look like installed, the new ones. They're a little tighter fit right here, but they fit just fine. Alright, we're going to go ahead and proceed to put this back together. Starting with the board. Make sure all of your wires are out of the way. And there were 6 screws there. Three on each side. And then you want to make sure you get all these plugged back in. This is where it might be handy to take notes when you're disassembling this, so you'll know what goes where. Most of these will only plug into one location. Alright, and everything looks like it's plugged in. Put the cover back on. And now we'll set the back cover on. Make sure all your wires are tucked in, nothing sticking out. And we'll put these screws in and get back to you in a minute. And here we are, the TV's reassembled, getting ready to plug it back in for the first time. And we'll cross our fingers. Voila! Success.